Hello there. I am Chris from Air Windows, and we're continuing what I started yesterday, as in doing mixes with ConsoleX. But I have interesting news. It seems to me, hey, dialectical spectacle, that one of my users who was having the most problem getting ConsoleX running tried something that fixed their problem. So I'm going to start off not with the mixing, and we'll get back into the song that I was doing yesterday, and I'm sure I can get the mix finished. I have my upstairs listening position ready to go. But I'm going to be finishing off that song, checking it in a couple of different places like the upstairs listening position. But then I am going to export it and edit it by 2-track, which is what I was doing in 2023 when I started this song. Future ones I'm not going to do quite the same way, but this one I'm going to finish it up the way that it was originally intended, as for the rest of the EP. But before I do that, I've got some work to do on ConsoleX. Turns out, for at least some people, the plugin's okay, but the fault lies somewhere else. Here where it says Air Windows, that's the folder that goes into documents, and people have been apparently following my instructions completely, but with one small problem. Here's the Air Windows Globals text that I furnished to people. And this is the defaults I use. On the Mac, and I should update user knob mode as well. I have a special case option just for that. A lot of people on Windows apparently do not have the font Jost. This is a Google font. It's not going to cost you anything. But if you didn't have it and you were on Windows, or at least on Windows running Ableton, or maybe all Windows people, and you didn't have this font, it would just insta-crash. On the Mac, it does not do that. On the Mac, if it doesn't have the font, and I tested it by going, I told the Mac to look for this font, which doesn't exist, as far as I know, and it was fine. But you can't do that on Windows. On Windows, if you don't have the font it specifies, it crashes. And it does not crash on the Mac. So what I can do is very simple. Arial. Windows are guaranteed to have that. I do not recommend that you use Arial for this. I think you should pick a font that you like better. But if you don't have fonts, for instance, or you just don't have the one that I specified, and again, it's a Google font, it's free, but do a little save. Don't need to include that, but that is one of the things that you can use. Don't know why that was there. Actually, having that there, I might have just screwed up. All the things that I've been doing since Christmas have been screwing everybody up. Oh, no matter, we fixed it now. And so, if I save that and then rezip this and put it in the various places it needs to go, by which I mean one specific place, I'm going to have to promise myself to go and register this program before the end of the year, because it always humiliates me by showing that I'm continuing to use it for free without actually having registered it. But here is the old ConsoleX zip, 1224. And here is the new ConsoleX zip, So if you were having crashes on Windows, that is what you should do. And now I have to go and announce in all the places. If I'm lucky, this will straighten things out. I'm very interested. I'm sure there's still going to be stuff going wrong. But this apparently fixed things for a user who was all over the place trying to give me information to help me debug this. It looks to me as if Windows just cannot tolerate not being able to find the code. So I might want to update ConsoleX itself to be able to handle that more gracefully, but this hopefully will cover people for now. At least that's the hope. So, and there wasn't really anything else going on there. So my place has got real cold. So we will do a little wood stove cam here while I derp around updating things for people. And by that, what I mean is I got to go to all the forums where I had made posts about things and continue to update them on what the new change is. So we'll get on that, and then I'll be able to do mixing. I got like 5 different places that I post things to, and I'm keeping them all up to date with the most recent changes that have any hopes of giving people a way of making this stuff work again. So here's one. Haha. Looks like a bunch of people are having the same concern. Let me post a reply. Like this. So now I copy that to all of the relevant places where they need to go. So there's gear space. Here is Dogs on Acid. Here's KVR. With a bit of luck, I can in fact fix the problem somehow. But in the absence of that, there's still something that I can do, which is tell people what went wrong and how it was fixed. Here's Terry Manning's site. And lastly, boom, a dedicated Facebook group, which is not under my control, but somebody made Air Windows audio files, and that is the final place that I post things to. So what I am now wondering, apart from should I throw more logs on the fire, and the answer would be yes, I absolutely should, is whether I want to go and like make another cup of coffee, although it's getting kind of late in the day. And I'm feeling like maybe no, maybe not so much. I will note that in doing the mixing yesterday, what I did this morning was I got up and I overdubbed a track. There is a new piano and a new arrangement of what I had to start off that track. It'll extend for a little bit longer, and it gets into the track in a more interesting way. But there was a piano part, which is my Kurzweil micro piano, that I needed to be there, and so I played that in this morning. It took me about 8 takes to get it all right. And one of the neat things about overdubbing stuff, rather than programming it in, is that it evolved into a couple of subtle shifts of how that part was played, and you will hear it once I get that rolling. For now, I'm going to attend to the wood stove, because it got cold in here today, and I'm going to make sure that it is burning well enough that it'll stay warm. And you can indeed have a listen. I'll get right on that as soon as I put a log in the wood stove. And yeah, I can't decide whether I want to go and make another cup of coffee or not. Perhaps not. We'll see. It's going to be too late to decide pretty soon. Doing okay, but I need to put more logs in here. These are not very large logs, but when they're small little logs like that, it's going to take me, I'll have to jump to it and throw more firewood in there on a regular basis. When they are big, thick logs, they last for longer, and when they're little skinny sticks like this, it'll start up much faster, but then they'll be gone almost immediately. Back into our Minecraft skeleton sound effect again. Minecraft skeletons are almost certainly firewood being tossed about. The way they go clunk. Anyways. What time is it here? It is currently 1:45 p.m. So it's not that unreasonable. It's not like I haven't been drinking coffee today. It's fine. Let's do the thing. I have one alteration here. I'm happy how quickly it started up, too. The alteration I mentioned. Let me see if I can make this make sense. Oh, I know what's happening here. I resized the window so that I could work with it. That's what. To do live streaming, I should have the window fit on the screen more accurately. And the one alteration that I mentioned that I would need to do is this one. I don't have the Motu turned on at the moment, so what I need to do is go into the master track outputs, because this is no longer doing anything because I'm not hooked up to the Motu, so what I'm working with is a much smaller selection of things. I've got the digital output and I've got SWB audio capture, and I'm going to want to start up both. Firstly, the ones I can hear, and then the ones you can hear, and it might work. It might start right up. Let's find out. That would be a nope, but I fixed that by setting up, going into OBS and reselecting it, at which point so here be the new track, a piano. Yeah, but I'm going to be tired at the end of today, getting this stuff finished and all. So this is still working on the control surface. I could move it over to show the control surface again, take it as red. I've got a fader on blue, and that's doing my piano. See? Or it would be if I ran show action list, no animation. There. Now, and I've also got a bunch of stuff. For instance, the flutter for stereoization and plate reverb here. Without it, it's this. I turned off the internal reverb in the micro piano so that I could use mine. And the way that sits in the track is like this. I've got some other stuff going on too. I edited some of this initial stuff so that it would do this. Forever, this is forever. This is forever. This is. And then it gets back into its main thing. So I made it be a little bit more sporadic. That's a kind of an arrangement choice, was done by clicking on this stuff and then hitting S to split the audio file region, and then scooching them around so that I could edit bits out. I made it go more intermittent. And the way that the whole thing starts up, it's more like this. Oop. You could put console in front if you didn't have anything else in the chain. So this is the way the track starts up now.
This is forever. This is for never. 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 This
That's clip only 2 and monitoring.
This is for never. This is forever. This is for never. This is forever. This is for never. This is forever. This is for never. This is forever.
Got
This is forever. 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 This is forever.
And then that downbeat is where the initial verse of the song would kick in. So I have a timing reference for that. You'll notice that right at the end of the track here, I have bits of it turned up. For instance, this kick drum head has been amplified as a separate little region. The region is this one. And then I also spliced off the piano part and stuck it to the beginning of that kick hit to make that a little bit larger. And the master bus does have clip only 2 on it. I could put 2 tape 8 on it, probably wouldn't want 2 tape 7. But this counts as stuff being on the master bus. We're not really hitting compression, although I think it does touch compression on the Fire band. The ratio of the compressors is very, very low. It's very close to dry. If I had it at fully dry, nothing would happen with the compression at all. And you'll notice I have a air boost because I was revising the drums so that the annoying cymbal would still be there, but I could get around it, have other stuff more obvious than it. And Stone is boosted very slightly with a very low range setting, meaning that on the master bus the extreme highs and the extreme lows are pushed just a tiny bit. All of these are left very much alone. Don't want to add really narrow boosts on the master bus. That's not typically what you would want to do. But, yeah, although, honestly, hang on. You say you notice the saturation, but this is about as loud as it gets. Watch what's happening on the master.
This is forever. This is forever. This is
We've got some bright peaks.
This is
going up there.
forever. This is forever. This is forever. This is forever.
But stuff like that, that's in the track. That's not on the master bus at all. We're probably touching clip only 2. I'm not quite sure how far we're hitting into clip only 2, but it seems to be addressing high frequency peaks more than anything else, really. So this becomes a whole other section. I can click on one of the non-used tracks. For instance, if I click on this, there is no console plugin on there, so nothing I do on the control surface will actually change anything. That said, I do have all the faders up and running. And now it becomes a time of bouncing around among these sections. For instance, this last bit is where the guitar solo lives. Here's vocal sections of various sorts. And we are going to investigate what this sounds like. And I'm going to have to shut off SWB audio capture for the upstairs mix reference stuff. And again, I have to click back and forth among these things. So that'll be moderately limiting, but no biggie. And if I can get this sorted, then hopefully before the end of the day, depending upon how close I am to this being done, I can export it out, ignore the bit towards the very end, or export only up to around 385 or so. And we're going to ignore this because another song is built out of this stuff, and it'll take an entirely different mix. A lot of different stuff going on there. We have a whole guitar track where it would probably make sense for me to go and add a second guitar to that because of the nature of this song, but at the time that I did it, there was just the one. And it's this section that is going to have our attention today, and it's about figuring out whether there is fine-tuning that I can make. Note that I am not necessarily going to run around doing things people say in chat. Fair warning. I have what I'm about here is to oh well, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between the two channels once I go upstairs to here. That's our mix test. I am going to be playing it on speakers, and I probably might as well even cut out SWB audio capture already. And I will do that, in fact. So we're going to be playing it and listening to what it's doing up here. In fact, why not just start right off with this? So if it's money you wanted, this mix test situation will give you exactly that. I'm going to go up and sit in that chair, and we're going to hear what this sounds like at a distance. Let's do that now. Hi. This is one of the things that I do. Trying to get a sense of at least what this section, I'll be doing this with every section, I think. I'll be running up and down the stairs like a jackrabbit. Within the context of the stuff that I am limited to, like for instance, I'm never going to be able to completely get rid of that ride cymbal. That's an arrangement problem. I could maybe pull back the deep bass on that bass guitar a little bit. Hard to tell. It's really quite resonant. So one of my choices is I could tune that bass boost down in frequency so that it hits the note less but magnifies like string handling behavior. And I'm getting some of the weight of the kick drum, which I'm supposed to. And there it is cutting off, but I think it's not that long before the next section starts up. So I might as well hang out up here and wait for that to kick in. Other tracks that I have, the things are more tightly spaced. And when I record new stuff, like, yeah, there we go. So some of this is being done by the 2-bus processing, by the fact that ConsoleX bus has its stone band very low frequency and boosted a tiny bit. I can probably dial that back a hair. That'll make the bass go down, but it'll also take this throb down. Some of the throbbing is the synthesizer drums too, because this particular drum recording I have doesn't have that much kick drum available. New ones that I do are a little better that way. You can hear it going. Okay, so let's go and play with some of those things and we'll get right back to it. Now we're over the regular speakers. So let's look at both of those things. There's our bass boost. Turning the frequency down a hair. For that matter, do that. And here is our bus. Default's just the meter, but see, this is a boost, and we maybe don't need the boost to be I've got it really showing me my subwoofers. We don't need as much of that. So now I'm wondering whether there's any, I've just changed those things. Often the way that I like to approach stuff is kind of bouncing around a little bit and sort of chasing many rabbits mixing wise. So what I'm going to do is skip over to this bit, which is many iterations of like the outro. I kind of just kept doing it. And I'm going to get that playing and run right back upstairs again and hear what I hear there. I'm assuming that I have pulled back the super giant bass behavior that I had going on a little bit. But the question is there anything else for me to listen for? And so up we go to that upstairs listening position again. I should check and find out whether the look of it is decent, but maybe it's all dark. I don't care, whatever. off to my upstairs position, and we're going to listen to a different section now. And we can also check what I'll do is I'll talk about what this section is like as it disintegrates into bad takes and parts that I'm not going to use for the song. And then we'll keep it playing because it's going to go into the guitar solo. And I'll be able to hear what the guitar solo is doing as well. And all of this is in that upstairs listening position. With a bit of luck, I can make a Cans preset that does a decent job of mimicking this behavior. But what you're going to hear is not cans. What you're going to hear is, in fact, a mic up there where I am, and we're both hearing the same thing. And this does a pretty good job of the mono listening check, because you're hearing both of the speakers driving the room and the hallway, and there is no sense of stereo anymore at all. You can also go in other places in a room and get a sense of that kind of thing too. But this is the extreme version of it. It's listening to the song, but from far away. Off to do that. All right, here we are. So this is going to go for quite some time. I have a bunch of iterations of this. I pick out the best section to put in the end of the song. But this is me just doing it over and over and over again on the assumption that everything will sort of come together for a good moment, and I just got to pick the moment. I'll be editing that stuff together as well. But I think I have fixed the low bassy pumpiness. I'm still hearing it. That's my 2 12-inch subwoofers doing that. But it's not out of scale with everything else now. I'm wondering whether that synthesizer is too large, but I want that to be one of the primary things. Also, that synthesizer goes into flutter. It's getting a stereo effect. We're not hearing the stereo effect. So the question is, should we be hearing the pitchiness and chorusiness that produces? Because I can hear the keyboard fine, although funnily enough, I don't hear either of the chords that are other synthesizers. Those exist. They're all gang together on the green fader. There's a chord that's in there. It's supposed to be going. I kind of hear it, but that could be stronger. That's literally the chord of this section. So we're getting that pad giving me that, but we're not hearing the one that's going along with the snare. Here we're getting into the wonkier sections, I think. All of these tracks are like played as hard as they could until I got tired and it wasn't playing as well anymore. Couple of minutes going on there. Again, the idea is I hope there's a moment in here where I can use it for the outro. Yeah, and here's where the vocals stop. drum fill. And then once this gets tired and stops, we're going to have the guitar section. So my mental notes for this are the chords that are coming from the synthesizers, other than the center pad one, could do with being louder. And I'm interested to know whether the guitar needs to be louder. It's different than it was last time you heard it, but level on the guitar seems okay. The question is, do I also want more chorusy quality on that lead guitar? Because if I do, I'll be turning up the effect output on Flutter. I can kind of hear that it's got the stereo chorusy thing going on. Thing is, when you have main guitar and then detuned left and detuned right, we're hearing both of them at the same time. And we don't have the stereo imaging to clue us in that something's happening. So that's what the mono check is for, and why this is effectively a mono check. And I do think we could go with a little bit more of the chorusy quality. That will also bring up some of that, the synthesizer in the middle, which was the only one that we could hear. I think that's probably good. But I got to address those chord, the synthesizer parts in there, which are actually modular. It's not being played, it's being essentially run by the modular. And those chords need to be more audible. You can't hear them at all. They're blending in with everything else. And this is in a time where, like, the bass is quite obvious, yes, but we don't have that rhythm guitar. Either we neither have the single note rhythm guitar, we don't actually have any rhythm guitar chords at all. And that's probably enough. So I'll have to go and do that, and I'll get to see what Ted had to say. But again, I'm making the judgment calls on these, and you're getting to hear it the way I'm hearing it up here in this hallway, which is a way that you can check a mix if you're in the middle of doing it. You might not want to choose a upstairs hallway where you have to run up and down stairs, but I mean, that'll give me a good appetite for my dinner, so it's all good. I'll forgive it. And back we are. Actually, you know what? The way I do this could just automatically go to the distant and then back here by pushing only one button. So that's fine. I would just have to do something different if I wanted to do like Yeah, like I said, I can set up the video switcher I have going on is an ATEM, a Blackmagic ATEM Mini Pro. You can tell it to switch the microphones as you switch cameras. If you do that, then you go to the wood stove cam and it doesn't have a microphone. So it just goes quiet. But that's fine. So where were we at? We were doing a couple of changes. Multiple things sort of partly on my mind here. In fact, at this point, some of this stuff can be done with like the mouse and little tweaks of things without running the full control surface because it's down to the little tweaks. Getting the whole thing together works pretty well when you have the control surface. And I do have everything is in fact riding off of the faders, because as soon as I switch the faders, the air windowmation in, it's going to snap everything to the faders anyhow, so I might as well have that going. But the stuff that I don't need to do that with, here's that flutter channel. That flutter channel is actually, I have not touched this, have I? Let's bump it over to this section. This is all of the flutter only output. We're just isolating it completely. It's full wet. It is full stereo. Although I don't know, it's weird. Weird how it do. I thought it was gonna do differently than that. But anyhow. So that's my fourth bus. My fourth send. And we're using it quite aggressively on this, but also we've got a little of it on the piano. We've got it on this stuff. You know, if I wanted to get really ambitious, one thing I could do is throw a little bit of it on vocals. The question is whether there are any vocals that need to be chorusified that much. I have not yet compared Blackmagic camera with iPhone 16. I don't think I have one. Like, mine is probably not. Let me take a moment and see. What is this? What are you, iPhone? About. No, man, this is a 13 mini. This is not even close to being a 16, so there's no chance I could do that comparison. That can't happen. But yeah, the this is the chorus effect.
Don't you recognize?
Perhaps this seriously is affecting it in some way. Not really sure, but this is how I have this in. Well, if you thought I was using Nokia phones, why are you asking me to compare it with iPhone 16? Seriously. So here is our flutter output. This is the thing that is causing the stereo widening that can sort of peak out on both sides of, you know, both speakers. Not that you're hearing that right now. Here. So this is what it's sounding like to me over them speakers. So that's not, it's wide, but it's not crazy wide. It's not crazy chorusy, but it's just enough. And we were talking about maybe boosting the loudness of it. So what could work for that? Firstly, if we were doing it with Stonefire, here's where that sits. Again, if this goes right back to exactly straight up, it goes back to neutral. You can bring range up enough so that it's engaged with the stone band and it's engaged with the air band. Neither of those are boosted. But then if I bring fire back in, even without doing any EQ stuff, we can make it be quite a bit louder while still having the same basic balance. And so now if I de-solo that, yes, the low-pass, high-pass filters are different on the bus plugin. I will demonstrate. There are DJ-style isolator filters on the bus plugin and SSL-style tone-shaping filters on the channel plugins. That's because I wanted more ability to have it match what an SSL channel strip would do on the channel plugins, but I wanted to be able to swoop out the entire audio on the bus. And the bus plugin is also smoothed. The channel plugins are not, because there are so many of them. And the bus plugin, there's only one of it, so I felt I could run the smoothing on the 3 different high-pass and low-pass bands each way along. It's a little bit more CPU hungry. Everything has smoothed, I believe, pan and fader. And I think maybe the Stonefire stuff, but the bus plugin has smoothed low-pass and high-pass. So that would be our flutter adjustment. You see, here is the fire is cooking along nicely. And what was the other thing I was looking for? I was looking to, let's do some more soloing. Here is the 3 synthesizer chords, which I believe are panned hard left, hard right, and center. If I solo these without fooling with the level on the control surface, what we can do is hear what those are actually doing. And sure enough, we can hear that that pad is covering all of the volume. I believe I have this snare. This is reinforcing the regular snare. I moved it over to like center left, so it acts a little bit like a full drum kit, kinda. That percussive chord hits with the snare And its timing is perfect, but you can't really hear it. You certainly couldn't hear it upstairs. So let's see where that is. Again, it's this one all the way over on the left. My high mid is boosted about as much as I can get it, so maybe. Keep some of that to be about the same. What you're seeing as it blinks, the reason it's blinking is not because compression is really engaging, it's because it's going between having signal present and being essentially totally silent. If the track is totally silent, the blinking lights turn off. Yeah, see you later, Mel. So... and we're hearing a little bit of the drums. Notice, however, we've also got the synth percussion. Synth percussion sounds different in this section. It's pretty heavy. That was just me dialing in the synth percussion low end on my subwoofers so that it would more closely match what the drums seem to be doing. And again, we have all these different sections to fool with, and we're listening specifically to, since one of the parts of the synthesizers doubles the snare, I have drums and the synth snare going. This one called and chord is not actually doubling the drums, but it's doing something else. So what I've done now is I've cranked up perk chord, which is doubling the snare, so that I could maybe hear it a little bit better. Let's see if it worked. In the beginning. It doesn't play in the beginning, so that's fair. And here's the solo. So one of the things you'll notice is, since this is off of a modular synthesizer, which today is not actually blinking. Yesterday it was all blinking all day long. All of these different sounds tend to evolve a little bit throughout the overall take. It's like large sections of stuff, and then just different things are overdubbed over different parts of it. So that percussion chord is doing different things. Here, we're doing a staccato short thing. Which I would like to be as audible as at least one of the snares. And here it's got a little more sustain going on. But we've also got this one, which we can't hear at all. And again, they are all on the same fader, so I'm doing adjustments of them, like having the center one. Let's bring up the center one and let's put perk chord on the left where it is. So these are all being adjusted on the same fader. So if one of them is louder than the others and it needs adjustment and fixing, what I need to do is use things to make it do that. And it looks like everything is using gating and compression in different ways. Chord pad is definitely compressing the Fireband quite a lot. And interestingly, this AND chord is the one that I can't hear in other sections. And maybe that's fine, because there's a big difference between this and this. With this, we can hear it very clearly. But with that, that's very mellow. You've got this little quiet thing coming in. And the chord completely covers it up. Also, perk chord is doing absolutely nothing with any of the reverbs. It's sitting over on one speaker and just being a little dynamic spike poking through. And again, we're doing all of this without hearing the rest of the mix, although I do have the annoying cymbal in there. And if we go back to the full mix, that guitar just got a lot louder because I turned the flutter stereo-ness up. So that's a thought. I heightened the mid-range of the guitar lead by heightening the mid-range of the stereo flutter that it leans upon quite heavily. So I think maybe look back at either ConsoleX channel or indeed Parametric that is also pushing that sonorous high-frequency blast. Let's see if maybe pulling back the high mid going into the tape that this thinks it is. And now it's loud, because it's meant to be loud because it's a lead guitar, but it's not as overwhelming. And my question is, what can I do with this AND chord, which is most easily heard here, although it also shows up, I can even see on the screen. And if I could solo it, you'd see that, ooh, hang on, that's interesting. AND chord is cool, but it's mostly not making a lot of sound. Oh, that's definitely going into the Blue Lantern asteroid operator, because that's what happens when you self-patch the asteroid operator to manipulate the frequency of the cutoff by the output of some of its bands. Game Boy, in time, I'm going to need to get help from Sudara, who's busy building a synthesizer, to do what's called a mono repo, at which point it'll be able to use all of this stuff, but then it will also have, I'll be able to just do the code and interface stuff, but I won't have to have 3 whole repositories. These are each their own repositories in GitHub. And Grigory, no, I'm not going to ask Bacon Paul to do that because I'd rather he didn't. And Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to you, even though I have said nope. So yeah, this is Antchord. Antchord is actually really cool. So let's boost it some more because it's cool. I'm wondering whether I can boost it even more than this. Oh, there's a couple of ways I can boost it. I can turn high mid and low mid up a little bit, but I can also widen them. So let's do that. We're in sort of mouse editing mode here. I've already got fire and air cranked as high as I can get them. So that's pretty strong. And then in the middle of it, when it's doing different things,
Please don't shed a tear, nor shall I, for woe is mine. Sing it not for never, but for once upon a time. Don't you recognize the passing of seasons for a precious time?
okay, having done that keyboard chord, which is not really a keyboard, the synth chord, is competing a little more effectively with, although hang on, we're fooling with this, right? We could keep fooling with it. What if I add a little treble? Because the fader is going to be the same each time. That fader is locked. It's assigned to green. So distinctions between these are made using these controls, and those can include me taking treble, making it as broad as possible, and maybe finding some interesting section in here where I can bring up treble, or find some section somewhere in the song, like this, where I know it's making a loud sound, and I can find a place in treble there. If I give a really steep boost to that, we've got a little more sparkle on it. It makes it sound kind of cleaner. And in other sections where it's doing, we're just like adding all of the boosts here. A funny thing about that is that this is similar to another plugin that I did called ResiQ, where its entire point was to replace a sound with a composite of narrow band passes that makes things sit in the mix more smoothly. So if you are doing a mix by cranking out treble, high, mid, low, mid, and bass, specifically for the purpose of constructing a sound out of a bunch of weird, like, here's where we started, right? So we do this with it. And it's being constructed out of a bunch of narrow boosts, although they are not, like, they're actually about as wide as I can get them. I'm thinking about in future versions of software like this, I might go for a more broadband 4-band parametric, because this is so narrowband that it's kind of aggressive. But yeah, the idea is to be able to make these things audible, and I could change this stuff with clip gain. That is adjustable. I'm not doing that right at the moment, but our output and there was one other thing I had in mind. It seemed to me like I could have the bass be a little bit more articulate. It's not that it's especially lacking, but this bass guitar carries a lot of this song. It's always important. Bass guitar, or indeed the bass in an EDM track, can be extremely important. And so what I'm wanting to have this do is have a real punch and clarity to all the little bursts of notes it plays. Which are like this. And part of what I've done here is I have turned the gate ratios and the compressor ratios down a little bit. The FC ratio is actually all the way down. But in particular, the gates, which are making the notes pop out or drop back, have been dialed back a little bit in hopes of making it more natural, and I'm wondering whether I want to have them go a little bit more unnatural again, just so that it reinforces what that bass does. And that will sound kind of like this. See, there's a certain articulateness, there's a certain way that notes pop out of it, and it's partly toned down by the fact that I have this bass boost. Remember, on ConsoleX, these are parallel to the compression. The compression is a separate thing, but the narrowband boosts that you can put in are drawing from the raw signal before it hits compression, although it does still get gating. So if this stuff hits compression, and I can't help but notice I have Fire and Stone at exactly neutral, and I've taken air all the way down, which I wonder whether I can, what that'll do to the sound. I'm also not doing low pass or high pass, am I? So if I put air on that, all I'm really doing is revealing kind of clicks and string handling noises in the way that the gates turn on and off, which is not necessarily all that I want, although it's still possible to just, with all of these three things straight up, we're effectively not doing a Stonefire except when it starts gating. And having the airband pass through, it actually ties to the fire gate, but it's not hitting compression, but neither is the fire compression, so maybe it'll be a useful thing. And if the clicks on that aren't what I would want, it might be time to low pass is distributed over the entire channel. So what that's doing is everything that is going on here up to and including the gating and any little clicks that it might produce, I get to low pass all of them in 3 different places across the plugin, meaning that it will suppress aliasing, but it'll also reduce anything that's produced after that point. Hey Warphead, well, I am glad to hear it. By the way, there is a update to the ConsoleX zip, which is the standalone plugins rather than this GUI plugin. And the ConsoleX zip, although it contains those, it also contains the little folder where you have Air Windows Global and whatever else is going on in there. And that's what I had to update. It started out trying to be the font Just, and that's what I'm using myself. But on Windows, if you don't have the font it's using, it crashes and dies. And so I had to specify Arial in Air Windows Global's text as the custom font. You should be able to use any font you have, but Arial is the one that you're guaranteed to have. And I've already had people try just replacing the custom font that they didn't have with Arial, and it got them up and running. Also, let me have a look at TopDB while I'm at it. Because if I have this as a very loud sound, that's one thing, but if I have it as a much quieter sound, it's going to depend. Like, there's probably stuff that I'm going to do on bass, particularly with my little, I have a SansAmp box. It's a VT bass. And it does a pretty good job of like Ampeg style sounds. I've got it wired up so that I'm distorting my Rick neck pickup and running the bridge pickup into sort of the mid-range band. And that can get me a sound better than this. This is just using C-Rick bass on 2 DI inputs. But that's going to get me more of the kind of sound where I could use TopDB and have it come off like a big old bass amp. This sound, not really so much. So I'm wondering whether, let me explore this a little bit. Because if I can find the right apparent dB for it, given that this is a loud sound. I've got my own fader for it. It runs its own fader. And it's meant to be one of the strongest sounds in the mix. In fact, I think I dialed back bass frequency, so one thing I can do is dial back the bass a little more, as I just did. And we were up here where it sounded kind of loudish, but if I pull it back, it'll be more DI-like. And in some ways that helps the gating stuff that I'm doing. Or we can bring it up so it acts a little bit more amp-like. So that's kind of neat. Let's give it just a hair more. Low mids is actually, well, hang on though. Yeah, low mids is causing that slight skronk. Except for, no, it's not, is it? There's a certain amount of like Rickenbacker clonk, clonk, clonk that I thought I was bringing in with low mid, but it's running a lot lower than that. So if I wanted to accentuate that, I could maybe go and dig it up in the... Oh, I bet that's what it is. I constructed this sound using Stonefire. So if I take out the clanginess by taking out fire, but if I boost it, that's going to give me a little more of that skronk, which I think is probably going to be helpful. So let's see how that works. A little more edge. See? Clonk, clonk. And having played with it a little bit in solo, it's a solid, loud sound. We've just turned bits of it up. But what we were doing was contrasting it with the rest of the mix that I know is going to be loud and intense. And this is the guitar solo section. So with all of those things going on and the heightened gating that I put into it, it now fits in the rest of the mix like this. So what I was doing just then, as I listened and adjusted things, was I was listening to how the mix was coming together and the beat hit. And at the moments when the bass was doing its little skronk skronk thing and the upper mid-range was poking out in that way, I was trying to make that jump out and synchronize with things like snare hits and stuff. Like I got sin snare going on. I can actually solo this and sin snare and bass. Well, actually, no, I don't have sin snare going, so it's only happening on the drum kit. I don't even have the percussion going. That it just drops right back to only the drum kit, and there's also tambourine, so we'll include that. But with those percussive elements soloed, all I've got is this. So yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about. And we could even play with high mid. So that nasty high edge that I was able to pull out through cranking high mid up as high as it would go is a kind of clickiness that's coming off of the Rickenbacker bridge pickup. And the idea is, can I make that reinforce the snare? Because when the snare and cymbals and stuff come together, it's nice to have a piece of the bass sound sort of popping out and blending with the drum sound. And this is not a rare thing in like your classic records. And yeah, when you have everything else playing, it's easier to be distracted by other sounds and miss the parts where it doesn't line up. But this is also the case for when the drums, like the kick drum, has a real clicky effect to it. And I do have a dedicated kick that I've hyped up a little bit more. So So that kick is some kind of mic or other. I don't know exactly what I was doing at the time. I have a better mic for that now. But we're gating the heck out of it and manipulating it to reinforce those drums without actually reinforcing the horrible ride cymbal stuff. So what I'm doing now is I'm sculpting this heavily gated thing, which I believe I can still... Hang on. So less of that air. See, there's where the cymbals would be, but we're trying to take those away. Actually, no, I'm going to bring air back in just enough so that those cymbals have a slight glossiness to them rather than just being only the dark parts of the cymbals that I don't actually want. And it might be possible to use treble to cancel them out some too, so I suppose that's worth trying. Let's do a little experiment there. So that's the cymbal ride that I don't want to have in this channel. And here is just a little glitter, which is less obnoxious. It's got a bit of a feel of hitting the cymbal, but without the horrible ride that I'm stuck with on the rest of the tracks. So this is now reinforcing a little tiny bit of the parts of the ride that I would want to have heard. And it's putting a lot of point on that kick, and it's putting a lot of point on the snare in a very isolated kind of way. I wonder whether I can... Like my bass, I've turned top dB down. I wonder if it would do me any good to turn top dB down on this and up on the main track. Let's see what happens. Because again, top dB is discontinuity, so that gives the sense of loudness, and it'll blend stuff together, it'll blend stuff in, but this is meant to be gatey. This is meant to poke right out, and I might be able to make it poke out and join up with the bass guitar transients this way. And then here is the main drums. These are also the ones we're distorting a bit. And so we can use this combination of stuff in the middle of a track where we've also got lead guitars. So that's enough of a change. I'm going to roll right back to this other section where it starts that stuff off. We've got those chords, we've done a bunch of little trims on the percussiveness of the bass and the way that the drums contribute to that percussiveness. So I'm going to say it's time to go back up to the upstairs listening position and hear how all this comes together. And I'm going to hang in there. I probably need to throw another log on the fire while I'm at it, so just a moment. And we're going to engage the damper this time. That's why the big log burnt out so fast, is I didn't have the catalytic converter going. Yes, the stove has a catalytic converter. But yeah, so now what we do is we've made all of those changes largely on bass and drums with the intention of making the bass and drums more articulate. We made the bass be more gatey. We turned up the synthesizer chords quite a bit with the exception of chord pad. We turned up the amount of like sonorousness and resonance. I'm going to have a quick peek at we see that plate 140 has had nothing done to it at all. That's interesting. What are we running into that? While we're in the middle of fooling around with all these things, let's see what else we can find out about. We've got chords going into this, but we don't have any vocals or anything like that. And we have lots of that guitar. But mostly we have this one chord, and chord is the one. And also right up at the beginning we have the piano. So I wonder whether I can get more of a sense of what this plate is, knowing it's one of my returns, but it has very specific chords and sounds associated with it, and it's not going to affect any of the other sounds. Let's see. I can even select it for the purpose of setting some of these ratios. So this is the stone range. A lot of this plate reverb sound needs to be kind of heavy noises. But it's going to interact interestingly. And then on the end here, so the way the Kalman filters work is it's going to isolate different stuff in different ways. Now the stone band on this reverb return, and we could possibly throw seriously on here as well if we want it to be a wide feeling. Because you're not hearing it right now, but I am. Actually here. That's just the stone band on this piano after plate 140. And I can fool with the range, make it barely cut in at all. Or we can have it be quite striking. I'm feeling like the lowness of this means this is a good quality to have in here. And then the fire band is carrying a lot of our sound, but the slight crackliness that we had there can reinforce sort of the lowness of it. And then we probably don't need air, because it's tending to take away the depth of the sound. Oh yeah, and here's ant chord showing up again, doing more ambitious things. So air goes away, and we have more of a sense of the darkness and depth of it. So I'll set air stone can be bigger. In combination with the rest of the piano, we have this. Oh, it just stopped. And we've got some flutter on that piano too. So this piano is constructed of these sounds. Again, air gives us... Oh, let's start it again. Start over here. Air gives us this sort of closeness that is not useful as much in a reverb. Hey, Grens, yeah, I saw it. I have updated the download now to make it claim Arial. Just so that, because I know on Mac if you don't have Arial, it'll still work. On Mac, if you don't have the font, it works. Windows, not so much. So now we're listening to just plate. So this is what that's supposed to sound like. Can we do anything to give it a little more Good. We probably don't need more mids in here. I know I don't need any more brightness, nor do I need more sub rumble. All that's going to do is distract from the subs of the drums and bass and things. But I do like having it there to give size. This is the plate reverb return. So my question becomes, what if I was to take a really broad, for this anyhow, high mid, sweep it around? Do I have any cool sections where in this area something like that maybe? That feels like a good place. Does it need to be narrower? Start it over again. Now I'm playing with the width. And now I'll start it over again, and I'm going to pull high mid back again while listening to it go, because we get to add that as like extra mojo. Let's try that again. Again, the hope is to take the stuff that's going into this super deep reverb, and that, I should remember, that includes the guitar. That guitar's going in here. Without the boost, the guitar is real deep there, but so the idea there is, let's make that air crackle a little bit, which also probably is going to involve top dB. And speaking of which, what else? Manipulate the actual plugin itself. And then over in the piano, with this other one going. This is a cool effect, honestly. Here's what it was like coming straight off the machine. So this is what the basic track sounds like. Isn't that cool? One of the key things is to start with cool sounds, start with cool tracks. All that crackliness that you hear, that's not all plugins. That is the Blue Lantern Asteroid Operator VCF self-patched. And there's multiple ways you can twist it in order to get it to do stuff like that. And then when you give it the plate and so on, you turn on console, where we're doing lots of funky boosts. Why does this have such low top dB though? That's such a loud sounding chord. I think maybe I want the opposite. And then in the end part, this is low top dB. This is very high top dB. That's pretty much the sound I want coming off it. Yeah, that's what's making this sound. The sound you're hearing when I do this. This is a very simple chord going into the Blue Lantern Asteroid Operator, and I think one of its band pass outputs is patched into FM. You can twist it in two ways because it has a attenuverter. So this is one of the ways that you self-patch it. There's a whole bunch of different stuff you can patch into that frequency modulator. So that's the thing where you would be modulating and warbling the behavior. But then when you're not actually modulating the when you don't have like an envelope, when you don't have something like that, but you're self-patching it, so your FM, rather than being, an ADSR, is one of the frequency outputs of it. You start turning the little knob, and this crackle comes in. It's probably something that can be done in VCB Rack as well. You'd be wanting to run a chord in there, but that's what you're hearing. Yeah, anything where you can do a VCF, you've got a filter, the filter is able to respond to audio frequency modulation. You FM the cutoff of the filter and then play with the resonance and stuff like that, and you get this. It's this very cool crackle. Sounds like a giant organ. And then when you run it into the Air Windows ConsoleX system, we're boosting all of these frequencies and doing all this crazy stuff. So you got this. We've highlighted it and narrowed down the crackliness into more tightly controlled bands. And then you got reverb. Nice subsonics coming through. And the overall thing, you mentioned Doom album. Well, this is where it starts. And I actually hadn't mentioned that we did all of those changes and stuff, so it's time to go and recheck this. Assuming, yeah. Fire's going okay. Time to go and recheck all of this in the upstairs listening position. I'm going to be listening for whether anything is sticking out in a weird way or unpleasant, and I've done a whole bunch of stuff before going and checking in the other listening positions, so let's go and do that now. I'll get it playing, and then we're going to go up to that corridor with the remote microphone, and you'll be hearing what I'm hearing. I had to turn off the SWB input because you were getting a direct feed off of the output. In order to hear this properly, you have to be hearing only the microphone. So let's see if we get the vibes from up here. Whether the lows are misbehaving themselves, anything like that. You can definitely hear what the bass is doing. Those pops sound very DI kind of. Yeah, a little skeptical of those high bass notes. Although I like how clear they were, they sounded like they were literally just an isolated note in the room downstairs and weren't blending in, which is everything I was doing was kind of causing stuff not to blend in. I made it more geety. I upped the mid-range a lot. So now we're going to hear the sort of verse sections. There's going to be a lot of singing. There's going to be a bunch of various stuff. There's a heavier synthesizer drum going on. Some of that thumpiness is the synthesizer drums. So I'm trying to decide if the kick drum on the real drum kit sounds like a full-size drum kit down there. Maybe a little quieter. Because I'm supposed to be getting rumbled by the subwoofers. That part's correct. But I don't want it to be out of control. And there's two things I can do about that, so I'm going to go and play with those things now. So the thing to do here is to notice that I'm doing processing on the master bus right here. And I am slightly boosting here. So I can dial that back a tiniest amount. And, uh-oh, that just moved. We'll try range being a hair lower. Actually, you know what? This fire is slightly low. Let's get that playing. I need to hear this as I move these because they bounced around a little bit. So, off we go. Yeah, this is where all that lows were going. So this is what the Stone Range is doing. And honestly, I don't think a damn thing is happening down there. So that's interesting. If I set it to do this, I have a little more control over what it's doing. This is activating only the kick. So while I'm listening to it this way, I may have a look at the synthesizer percussion. I wonder we'll set this up so that it starts bringing in a bunch of stuff. And let's see what happens when this is doing its thing, right? If I have more of it. I swear to God, it's as if this is not as low as I thought it was. The super low stuff is drums, drum kit. This is dark, but we're really not getting as much of the thump as I thought I was. This is, oh, maybe it's coming in through here. Yeah. Yeah. So if this is separate of Stonefire, we've got its thumpiness coming in, and we've made the master get rid of everything but the subs. So what must we do to isolate drums from syndrums? And the answer is probably high pass. See, now we've got it, and now we don't. So here's where this section works. That is what the sort of low bass boosted stuff is doing. And there's the actual drum kit. So we're on Synperk. So when I bring the high pass in, that's what the actual drum kit is like. So let's use this to dial in the subs while we're sort of soloing them, knowing that we had this very slightly boosted, but it honestly wasn't really engaged at all. And then bring that thumping back out by using a high pass to trap it into a slightly higher range. It's barely any high pass, but it'll probably work. Also, just for funsies, let's throw bass into here. Well, one possibility is pull its tone back. But a lot of that stuff was being got through the high mid boost. I know this is really weird, but this is the way I'm approaching all this. I'm listening to a weird hybridization of the sound. Including an air boost on the 2-bus, by the way. Where I'm allowing the drum kit to carry most of the deep low weight, but we've also got synth percussion. And I've used just a hint of high pass to rein it in. So it's not just going bup 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 in the extreme lows the entire time. And so then when we put fire back up, it was just slightly lower than neutral. And then we de-solo everything so we have the full mix again. We got this. What do you mean, just a junglist? Just a junglist? I love jungle. Come on. And so now we're going to go back to that upstairs listening position and start this from scratch and do the intro and the initial part, after which I'll probably start my rice cooker going, and I'll leave the fire showing. Yeah, but back upstairs to hear all of this go with the most recent changes. I had mentioned that the pop in the bass was too up front for me and it sounded too clear. I can think of one. We could scooch this to slightly higher top dB without making it too overbearing. And yeah, the extreme lows are not going to not behave quite the same because we've got Synperk there providing the ba-bump, 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 but we threw in just a hint of high pass while listening to the whole bus with pretty much all of the sound taken out. And this is now going to heighten the extreme lows on the... We were monitoring in such a way where we were hearing only the sparkle and the thud. And then we put it all back. So now I bring all of this up to the upstairs listening position. And let's hear where these first couple of sections got to. So we should get a lot of cool stuff going on, but the deep lowness of things ought to be slightly better behaved now. I'm already happier with the bass. It's just being played, right? But feels more like a string. So far so good. I mean, I could dial the lowness of the bass back a little bit. I don't know if I have to. It's that lowest note coming out. But it kind of balances with the plug. I kind of feel the rumble on the kick drum too, it's slightly heightened. And yeah, all over to the verses where we've got the bass and the guitar going. And that synthesizer percussion should no longer be throbbing as heavily as it was because it was going wah-bump, wah-bump, wah-bump. I'm pretty sure I'm doubling that on drums at least some of the time, but it's hard to hear because the drum mics were not ideal for this recording. You can kind of hear where the kick drum comes in early. just my right foot doing some of those things when it does the double hit. Yeah, I'm arguably kind of content with this. It really shows me the throb of the sub-lows this way. My hope is I can make cans act like this too. I'm debating running down and skipping ahead to the next sections. But the way this is hitting the stairwell and corridor and stuff, where everything is kind of all desynchronized by the acoustics, but the throb of the lows is still there. I wanted to get it to a place where it would be comprehensible rather than all disassociated. Like where the weight of my foot on the drums is causing the accents to be feels in about the right place, even though it's like right down in the subwoofer territory. And if I can get that right, that's the important part. Then it's also a matter of if I'm working, for instance, with jungle or with some kind of electronic thing, it's exactly the same. Doesn't matter whether it's a real drum or not. I'm going to be trying to make it do the same things. If I'm working with like amen breaks or whatever, I'm going to want to make them move those ways. Here's another alternate. His subs are basically just the kick drum here, because that synthetic thing is now going to chicka 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 clicka clicka. I'm listening for where the articulation of the bass, like the clickiness of it, combines with the kick drum. Because I'm listening for those isolated kick drum hits that are bright enough that they kind of clack. I've been practicing over the last couple of years, so I can do this better now, but I'll be doing new things going forward rather than trying to do this over again. Probably this is the part that I used. When the bass comes in and the kick is already there, like, in exactly the right time. That's what I'm shooting for. And it's not always obvious and telegraphed. Like, and this loses steam and starts going into fumbling, like the focus goes away. But the idea is when you're doing this style of stuff where everything is kind of a human played thing, you can have it so that there's an extra clack on the drum and there's an extra clack on the beater hit and so on, so everything goes clock, and it makes it very clear. But what I'm shooting for with this is when a note hits, like the one comes and the bass plays and the drums are there, and it just suddenly just appears out of nowhere, ideally synced along with the vocals and everything. And of course you sing the vocals where you're hitting your cues at the same moment as if your voice is a drum, but then you also have to hit the note and you have to express it with the right level of belt or whatever. And there's a lot going on, but that's why music is interesting, why there's a lot to it, because you realize when you're doing that kind of thing, even if you're just making stuff up in a laptop or whatever, when you get into the zone, that's going to be interesting to people, even when you get parts of it wrong, even when you haven't performed all the details perfectly. The greats of the greats are able to isolate their stuff, and it's amazing. But there's a lot of stuff that's interesting to listen to, where even though there's a bunch of isolated stuff that's wonky and weird and hasn't come across properly, you put it all together and it still captures the attention. You can feel the musical intention coming through. And so that's that section. So we're going to listen to the guitar solo part and hear how the guitar solos sound now that I've cranked up the mid-range and the reverb some, and the stereo chorusiness, and dialed down the mid-range boost going into 2 tape 8 because other stuff was dialed up. Also, any low frequency thumps are drum kit, nothing else is left. Well, the tambourine is left, but that's another real thing. Guess I just switched it back to no electronic percussion for the guitar solo part. Go figure. I hear enough of the chorusy washiness that I think it'll be cool in stereo. And I can still hear every note that bass is playing, but it's not poking out. So I think we're there for that as well. Getting into the fade. We fade where it starts doing ugly notes. It gets lost. We're finding new places in the notes. Yeah, I'm happy with where the low end is coming with this. The way that it swings in as the kick hits, and the way that it's balancing with the bass. The bass is not poking out too much, but I can feel where the notes are. And again, we're upstairs in another corridor, so if we can hear this stuff at this much removed, that's a good sign. Good enough that I think I'm ready to run a output pass and start editing it together. When we get back together for another thing, which isn't necessarily instantly, we can do a different song. But this will probably do. So let us forthwith identify where this leaves off. Actually, I think I can select all of the everything, and it'll probably let me use the selected size to export. Render, bounds, time selection. I have a time selection. File name is not come to this. That is a different track. File name is going to be for never, not never, never. Nevere, oh no. There we go. And we're using 96K. Don't need to care about the resample mode. Don't need to care about normalize. Never actually got into trying to run 2-tape on the bus. It would change everything if I did that. I'm going for more of a realistic thing rather than I'm pretending that I recorded this in a 1970s studio thing. Let's see what we got. Render one file. And away we go. So we get a sense of how loud this is as well. I did not actually check where any of this was going to sit, and I'll tell you why. It's because I believe in the idea I was throwing around where I said, I don't think mixing and mastering are the same thing. I don't think you can master while mixing. I don't think you can mix while mastering. So what I did was set it up so we're not actually clipping or breaking anything. And we've got all of this stuff doing its stuff. What I'll do maybe is open it up in Twisted Wave, assuming well, it'll be fine. And look at what we've done in Air Windows Meter. Because at no point have I checked any of this in Air Windows Meter. After assembling the final thing, which would be done in Twisted Wave, what I'll be doing is going and checking it out using a chain of like Air Windows mastering and meter. Because with that, I can readjust some of this stuff, looking at it from a larger standpoint. And I honestly do not know if this is going to try to also do the come to this tracks, which is a completely separate thing. But what I see, we've got a very tiny little true peak. That's probably fine. 0.2. It's not happening constantly, I know that. And yeah, I think it is actually, it's using the entire project, not just the time selection. There's no harm in that though. It's just going to waste us a few seconds of futzing around, listening, or letting it finish. And the stuff that it's doing right now is not mixed. It's just continuing to do the entire project rather than only the part that I want. So I will simply go in and edit that. Yeah, and you guys talking about meter, we'll go and have a look at meter right away. We are done. So let's close that. For whatever reason, we ended up getting right into the other stuff. This was the part that we wanted, and this is the part we don't. And I can hit save and be done with that. (2023) EP. And we have made a wave. So we're going to drag that into Twisted Wave. And again, here's the stuff we did.
Forever, this is forever, this is forever, and a life just to live for a precious time.
It's possible that it would be worth pulling the whole thing back a hair. I'm not sure. Oh, more will be revealed there. But then this is the stuff we didn't actually mix. That wasn't even supposed to be there. It is purely a mistake. So Yeah. My wood stove still needs more firewood. It's been starving for firewood this whole time. But we're going to have a look at what this does in, because this is a perfectly fine time to jump back into Reaper and adjust some of these things. But we're going to have a look at what this does in meter, given that this is the result. This is essentially as if I mixed stuff kind of hot. I'll pull this track back a hair. So first things first, let us throw another log on the fire because it is still on the chilly side. And in fact, I'm going to take a moment and throw a log on the fire while the microphone is still up. And and I'm also going to check chat once I finish doing these couples of things. It's because I have these skinny little logs here at the moment. They're great for firing up and burning real quick, but then they are immediately done. So I have to keep fussing with them. On a normal day, that's not a problem, but if I'm working, it can be distracting. There's another one. There's another one. Here's another one. All tiny little logs. Compared with, say, when I get around to using this one, this is a more sizable log. I don't know if I'm going to be able to put it back. Oh God. Go. Fair question. Jeez. Come on, you. Here. Go, you bastard. Here. Excuse me while I fight with logs for a while. Such a big log it doesn't fit back into the damn rack. Come on, you. There we go. There, got there. And then, like I said, I'm also going to get rice started for my dinner, so I'll be right back. Alrighty. I'm back. Fire should be good. Let me do a little scroll back. Man, I have to do a lot of scroll back to see what people are talking about. I was so busy working. People talking about Windows issues. Let me go to... Yeah, people talking about Windows issues. Cloud is seated, you must be doing something good. Okay. Figuring out how to use meter. Well, we're about to look at that. And use it on trucks you like. Try imitating them over sluice and meter being heavy red spikes. It's going to be real interesting to see whether I get any of those. I might have red spikes on this because I was not checking it in meter. I was just mixing and getting the sound the way that I wanted to. But that's why mastering is a separate situation. Red spikes are slew. They are brightness. I could very easily have excess brightness in here because I wanted to have the high frequencies and the detail come through even upstairs in the hallway, as you heard. It also might be louder than I think. So this is not exactly loudness war era, because you can see it's not sausages. There's a lot of space in there, but it's going into maximum loudness quite often. There's just space around it. Some bits of it, like where the vocals are hitting, we're pretty thoroughly filling up space with stuff. There's often something happening that is at full loudness. But it never quite becomes a sausage. It's just, we've got loud stuff poking through, and it's capable of going up to full loudness quite often. That's why I had the clipper on there. And our quietest stuff as we start off, that's actually rather quiet. It's like 18 dB down peak is not going to be considered loud by people. Or here, this section in the end, where nothing's happening anymore, that is like 6 dB down peak. That's arguably not enough. So yeah, and I see most recently Shane, Logic having problems with license validation. This is a signed plugin. That stuff is supposed to be working. It's being built okay. I do have some resources I can look to for trying to resolve stuff like that. I kind of stopped working with Logic at a certain point. So let us fire up. How about content peak? Oh, content peak couldn't be found. Interesting. Well, here's meter. And here is mastering, which currently ain't doing anything. Everything is bypassed, everything is off. But if we play this track, which I believe we are at the, let me click on it again. Oh, we're not. We're only on one channel and we're only up at the beginning. So if I tell it to go to move to start, I don't think I'm going to have time to edit this together, but that's a very time consuming and annoying thing, so I'm not going to make you sit through that. It's like finding clips of it and splicing them together as if I was 2-track editing, which I literally will be. And yeah, I made this. And I don't think I'm doing SWB at this stage. No. So we are starting the meter way of things is green dots is mellow, it's dark. So our startup is on the dark side. Novelty is good, and this is immediately going to give us more highs. But notice the red spikes? Having enough brightness is causing that to happen. I'm not fixing that in mixing, I'm going to be fixing that in mastering. You'll also notice it's not constant. And I bet there's going to be more. Because now we have that tambourine. And that tambourine is real loud. Although you'll notice that a lot of those bright spikes, they're not going all the way up to the top. And one thing we do have is a super dense cloud. So we're going to stop when it stops. So what do we see here? Getting rid of those red spikes is easy. That's not hard. That is, like, the most recent version of Air will let you do it. That's also what you see in mastering. You just turn up this dark F in ratio, and you can put a clamp on that or scale it however you want. I'm probably going to have it scale, but have a certain amount of it still be there. I'm also hitting AF with the combination of the various things. That is simply a matter of having the sonority and novelty both happening. We are also hitting a huge dense cloud of peaks here. Like, here's our spikes, and mostly that's a cloud of blue dots there. Zero cross is a kind of continuing blast of, it's sitting around the 200 hertz line, so this is voiced like a 70s track, but where we expand it outwards, it starts to expand a little more. We're getting down lower without having a lot of stuff sub 40 hertz. That's probably good. That's why I was adjusting the subwoofers in the way that I was. So that works. Anything that is a red dot here, I can probably rein in with dark F. I could do that for you while you watch if you're interested. But what I'm interested in is where these peaks sit, and this, although is a sustaining kind of buildup, the way this cloud works, I think, is good. In particular, although we have a lot of stuff going right to the top edge there, you'll notice it is not going into a red clip marking, and that's simply because I have clip only 2 enabled, so it's stopping it from literally hitting clipping. Also, the true peak stuff that was being generated, when I take care of these red spikes, the true peak stuff is going to go away. True peak is happening when the red spikes are as high as this. When the red spikes aren't this high, true peaks will not be occurring. And yeah, I have what I came up with from mixing creatively rather than mixing to master is a peak cloud that I think works for this section of the song. It comes up to a part where it's continuing and sustaining. The red dots at full brightness is not necessarily all that you would want. Part of that is that ride cymbal, of course. But that's easily fixed. And when you have the green dots on meter, because meter specifically it's inverted. I should probably do a version of meter which is dots against black, because then I can use the same colors that are in the ConsoleX version. In the version which is dots against white, it is using green for dark sounds and red for bright sounds. If it was against black, it would be using green for bright sounds, because that combined with blue turns into cyan, and cyan is the brightest color. Whereas if you had cyan showing on this against white, you wouldn't be able to see it. What exactly in the signal triggers the red spikes on the meter? Slew rate. Slew rate is how fast the sound changes between one space and another. And that is done by treble. It's done by your cymbals. It's done by that ride cymbal that's so annoying. It's done by my tambourine. And it's done by some percussive sounds. So brightness is what causes the red spikes. You also probably want to see some red spikes, but have them be in a controlled way. You want them to show up when you want them, rather than just blasting all out over everything. And I'm seeing some of that. Like, I'm seeing the red spikes on this blasting out all over everything, but it's controllable. I can fix that in mastering. Go back in and make them just go right away again. On to the next section, because the next section, if I can click properly, there we go, is the verses. Here's the dissonant part. I've got de-essing on these voices. Now that red spike, that was sibilance. And I'll stop it. So what we're seeing in this verse part, it's mellowed out maybe just a tiny bit from the intro, which is interesting. Oh, Aaron, yeah, I've got your email. I don't know what to do about it. I haven't yet reproduced it because I haven't looked into it because I was so busy. I have your email. I didn't respond, but that was because I didn't know what to do about it, and I can fool around with it. If I'm able to reproduce it, that doesn't automatically mean that I can fix it and make it better. If I'm able to reproduce it and I can also fix it and make it better, I will. So yeah, that's the only email in my mailbox at the moment, because that's the one where it's like, oh yeah, right. So yeah, too many other things happening right now, can't do it. But I'll get to it. I will look into that one. I don't feel like crashing Twisted Wave in the middle of doing this just to show that it's a real bug. I'm sure it is. I believe the way you had it set is a way that one wouldn't normally use it, but it's also where if you were moving the controls about and you did that, you wouldn't want everything to crash. So it's worth fixing. If, again, I can't fix it, we'll see. That kind of thing, probably. I can probably find out what's causing it, and it's probably a simple oversight, or just making it do a certain thing where I know how to make it be better. So one of the things that's going on here is a horrible, bizarro world version of what Crosby, Stills, and Nash sometimes do. And that is, we have loud peaks in here, which are on the top meter coming out in green, meaning that it's a bassy sound. And the bassy sound stuff is able to go right to the top of the meter. So we have bassy sounds that are peaking out and as loud as they can get. We've still got the same pattern of what looks like a very even blend of peaks. This is probably why it didn't come across as being super distorted to me. All this stuff can be adjusted. Like, I could pull the voices back a little bit, although I think the balance is pretty good. But the reason it didn't come off as seeming super distorted to me is because if you squint a little bit, it doesn't look as if there's a line across the top. You can see where the peaks get to the top, but they don't turn into like red spikes or anything like that. Instead, they're still pretty... The size of the dot has to do with the density of it. And the sort of visual blend there is it's filling up all the sound. And when it goes to full loudness, it's not going to full loudness so hard that it's breaking or losing anything. In fact, there are sections, like around where my mouse is at here, where it's not actually hitting full loudness for seconds at a time. So this is probably, I could fuss with the zoom a little bit to like widen it up a little bit. That's this one. It's not impossible that I give people this one, but this is more a internal plugin that I was going to be using for this kind of stuff. It's not easy. It's tricky. But yeah, and let's see. If Shane's saying... Yeah, see, the thing with that is it could easily be the fault of the plugin, but not in any way that I understand. Logic does get twitchy at times, but it could also be, there might still be something I'm able to do to make it better. Like, once Paul is finished putting out the synthesizer that he's doing, which he hopes to put out around New Year's, or I'm not sure when he's coming up with it, and I'm looking forward to that. I intend to download Bacon Paul's new synthesizer. It's a kind of a joke synthesizer. It's like doing a real good version of worst imaginable synthesizer. So I can't wait to see what he's up to. But once he's finished doing that, I can ask him what's going on with this validation blocked. Because he'd know. I don't. He'd know. Some of the people who could help me with this stuff aren't available because they're busy. Or out of town. Like Sudara is not at home in Vienna. Sudara is visiting family and hanging out with people and having like Christmas and New Year's and stuff. So I can't interfere with that. But he'll be back. And he has his own synthesizer he's working on. And when that's out, I make sure to let you know. But yeah, second verse. See, it's not clipping all the time. There's some space in there. And the entire range from 0 to 6 dB down is densely full of peaks. This is good. That's what I wanted. Oh, did they release a Broken Mini Moog? I should check that out. I like Full Bucket. Notice, although you can barely see it because I'll skip back. Let's look at that in context. Watch what the top of this does. When I start to belt, they're big blue dots because the balance of tonality when I belt is hitting a loud sound, but it's also got the correct amount of slew going on for when the voice gets loud. And that's pretty optimal. That's balanced. That's one of the reasons why I don't want to readjust it, why I don't want to like go, oh, this is all too loud, it's going to the top of the meter and therefore I must fix it. It's like, no, not necessarily. But in mastering, I can open it out a little bit, and we'll do a little bit. It's 420, so celebrators, you go ahead and celebrate. I stopped doing that years ago, but I can fool with some of these things to give a hint of what I would do with it in mastering. Let's skip ahead to another section. Here's that chorus part. It's actually more open than the other part.
Please don't shed a tear. No shall shed for woes
Probably because the synthesizer drums aren't hitting as hard.
Sing it not for never.
Yeah, isn't that interesting? So this is the bit that I'll be clipping for the kind of end bit, and it opens up, although it's also noticeably brighter. Those red dots, those are more brightness. The red spikes, brightness. Red novelty over blue sonority, that's what makes it sound poppier. So we go back to this part. It's got a darker texture to it.
As the wind starts to howl.
We got a bunch of stuff going on there. It's a dense, louder sound. And where the meters are going, novelty is not as high as sonority. This is a thicker, heavier, more sort of rock and roll sound. We skip over to this other part and the arrangement is different.
But for once upon a time, don't you recognize the passing of
Because the percussion's doing different things.
season?
We have fewer vocals. There's only 2 voices in this part, and that's having a profound effect on it. The guitar that's doubling that bass is not there this time. And a bunch of things are doing slightly different stuff. So this is leaning more heavily on brightness. It's showing up in all these little dots. It's still peaking out at the max, but you'll notice we're not all wedged against the top edge anymore, which is another good reason why all of this is working out okay with what I did with it. You skip ahead to a section like this.
Once upon a time, don't you recognize the
Same drums, same everything,
seasons?
same bass tone.
Seasons for a precious time. We
But the way it's arranged,
reason.
remembering novelty is whether you're doing stuff that's different to get attention or whether you're sitting with the same kind of drone or groove. If you're sitting with the same kind of drone or groove, that blue line could be higher, but the red line go way down. And the pop hit moments are often when your novelty jumps way up. So this section is a section where I definitely have to use mastering to cut back on those red spikes. The brightness jumps way up in this section for a lot of different reasons. It's all over the place. But other stuff gets out of the way.
Reason. Please don't shed a tear.
Some of it's the voices.
Shall I for woes
The voices are belting harder here.
sing it not for never, but for once upon a time.
So basically, the way that the track altered is it shifted from the, and this is another thing where my choices in miking this for vocals starting out, I would not do it this way going forward, because what I was doing was running a Colaris, which is attempting to act like an Elam, or Elam, whatever, into a distressor and compressing real hard. If I did this into just the Mini K47, for instance, and set it so that I wasn't clipping and just projected throughout, which I'm mostly doing, then when it slipped into this section, rather than having all that other stuff be super loud, like this, I could mix everything so that those harmonies, which are going very loud because they're compressed, would sit a little bit lower, And then when we go into the chorus part,
The passing of seasons, seasons.
and the loud parts jump out, they would probably have those red spikes, but I can fix those very easily. And the overall volume would jump up. Instead, the overall volume is dropped back because some of the sounds like sat out. I no longer have as much going on there. And then probably what's going to happen as we're finishing with this is we get into the guitar solo, which I believe is going to jump back up in volume again. But let's find out what happens. Kinda. Yeah, so our guitar is able to make loud things happen right up at the top of the volume. You can plainly see where that tambourine comes in. These little spikes, those are literally all the tambourine. Tambourine is making all of these loud spikes because there's nothing left in the synthetic percussion anymore. And again, easily fixed. But the distribution of peaks here is pretty good. Meter will not show aliasing as red spikes because aliasing comes in as quieter sounds that are lower in frequency. Aliasing would be if you had dots that were all the way down here, except for that if you're getting it, you're already having sounds be up here. So aliasing will not show up on this meter. And that's basically, my fire is already dwindling, but it's getting pretty close to 5. I can probably leave it at that. Yeah, so what I'm looking here is what I would be doing in mastering, and technically I can adjust all of these things section by section and then splice them together. That's not impossible. I'm probably not going to be looking to do that though, because it would change the whole perspective. Well, there are times when people have changed the whole perspective of the mix while editing stuff together. Famously, well, not famously because nobody knows this other than people who read Bill Bruford's autobiography, but the famous Yes album, Close to the Edge's final parts contain a section edited into the 2-track master where it was the performance they needed, but the mix was all screwed up. So there's a section towards the end of Close to the Edge where they're going back into singing and there's way too much reverb on the voices. And all of a sudden it's like, and they used that for the 2-track mixdown, and they edited that into the 2-track master because that was the one that had the performance they needed. So it's possible to do things like, okay, we're going to take this section here and make, in mastering, fool with it and make it a completely different density and have it not be the same as what you did with the other stuff. You can do things like that. I'm probably not going to, but you can. And again, what we see here, this is probably what you want for like a guitar solo making a loud sustained note that really hits. It's probably going to act like this. You'll notice it down right at the bottom, and you see these little lines here are a graphical glitch that I never solved. If I am ever able to solve it, I'll do another update of meter. But you see that the green texture of this, and the green texture basically means pop style sound. As that guitar hits the note and sustains and makes this really loud, dense part of the sound, it goes dark. Because that's more of a like rock style meter interpretation. Whereas for other stuff, it'll go quite bright again. A light green like we have right over here. And then it'll go back to the dark shades again. So let's find a section where it's doing stuff and find out what it sounds like when we apply the mastering stuff I was talking about. Here's ratio. There is slow restriction. Now it's all dark. There's a hard limit to how bright it can get. Dark F is up higher for this. Take it down to about here, and then ooh, there you go. Need to play that again. So it's darker because we're slew limiting that. So having applied this, we now have our brightest spikes much more controlled. And the line as the wind starts to howl is one of the things that pushes really big red spikes because it's a bunch of sibilants and stuff, and we didn't de-ess it to the point where it's lisping. So that can be controlled. As far as the rest of this, we could fiddle. I'm probably not concerned with fooling with the EQ stuff because we did all of that matter of stuff. Although one thing I could do is leave these crossover points the same and see if I can bring any of this stuff down into the 40 or sub 40 hertz range. These EQ bands act really weirdly against each other, so we're just going to live with it. Interesting side effect is I brought more subs out and pulled the low back a little bit. All of a sudden we are constantly peaking without clipping, and we've just got a line of peaks up there. So there's a number of things that we can do about that. One of them is not do that as much, but we've also got our zoom control. So adjusting it that way, we have pulled a lot of energy out of the loudest section. This is almost certainly more zoom than I'd really want to use. And remember, you've got zoom as an independent plugin. It's already out. You have basically all the bits of this, other than this being 4-band. And this being 4-band is really twitchy and awkward. That's why I'm not sure about releasing it, because it'll turn and bite you. It gets weird. But we've got all of these things. Yeah, why wouldn't he? Because it's inexplicable and really hard to work with. But you can do this. So that's me balancing it out a little bit more. See, as soon as I start trying to bring the subs out to where zero cross starts to really fill in the lows, I immediately go to full crank, and the top meter is nothing but a line, typically a line of blue, but it's like the low frequencies are now doing everything all the time. It's fully cranked. And that's too much of a, to my mind, that's too much of a change. This is another reason why I haven't put it out yet. I won't say I never would. Let's also throw this onto some amusing, like NG80, for instance. Bearing in mind also that we can bring out more of the, like supposing this is all too dark. Let's go to this section where it's definitely not too dark.
Once upon a time, don't you recognize?
We've got the highs clamped here with dark F, so I could
Seasons for a precious time. We love the
hype the heck out of it.
reason.
Now we have just a forest of red spikes.
Nor shall I forego as mine. Sing it not for never.
This end bit. This end bit is when things were too bright. Notice at the very bottom, this is turning into a light blue-green. That means it's leaning on bright real hard. It's arguably, this is too much highs. If you listen to it on certain things, it'll just all be glitter and shimmer.
Once upon a time.
I've got the air band, same as Air 4, at like 0.59. This is almost 0.6. This is pushing rather hard.
Don't you recognize the passing of seasons? Seasons for a precious time. We love the on reason. Reason. Please don't shed a tear. Nor shall I, for what was mine. Sing it not for never.
So what we've done in doing that, we're changing it from this
But for once upon a time,
to this.
don't you recognize the passing of seasons?
And that's opened it up a little bit. Not a huge amount, but it's opened it up a little bit. This also, you also notice that it's controlling the highs. The red spikes are larger with the one that actually doesn't sound as bright. This is what I would call the mastering stage of interpreting, like which bits need to go where. Like I can pick a different dither for some of this. Supposing I want to just go straight up to TPDF wide.
Seasons
More a natural type of sound.
we love beyond reason.
And one of the things that's happening, doing these things where I've expanded it outwards, arguably that's zoom is still too much here. Because we didn't need that much help. We don't really need to bring all the peaks down to 18 dB down. That is arguably too much dynamics. Whereas I think the ultimate would probably be even cloud between 0 and like -12, but not all the way down to -18, especially with something that's fairly modern. Let's bounce back to the verses and hear what it does with that. And again, we started with this. Kick it in. So one of the nice things about this is that manipulating it this way, the sheer aggression of all of those the ride cymbals, it backs off a little bit because the fullness of everything else is coming forward. And we've used zoom to pull it back a bit, so some of these sounds are peaking down into like 12 dB down, but it's still mostly this cloud up here. All of this can be scaled down much like in Stonefire, where I could set all of these to half of what they are and then the entire gain will go down. That won't necessarily make the line at the top go away, but it might do something like that. So that might be an interesting thing to try. Rather than this, we'll make sub be just 0.5 and dial everything else back. See, we can make the whole thing be much quieter. Or indeed completely ruin it. It's no longer even recognizable now. See, this is why this is deceptive, because this implementation of a 4-band Kalman filter turns and bites you. Turn low right down and bass starts coming out again. It's definitely very creepy. So yeah, we can, and this is another reason why I haven't been favoring putting out, because it's like, if you're working with meter and you're working with this particular plugin, you can chase what you think these dots are supposed to look like in a way that is self-sabotage. I mean, check it out. It's like, you're like, okay, now we no longer have any clips up at the top, and we can even give a little bit of extreme lows. We can fight it to try to make the zero cross be wider, like this. And you can just do weird things. And you can go, okay, I know what needs to happen. It needs to make the section here cover the entire range of the zero cross meter. And you go, okay, I have solved everything. We're doing this. But then you shut it off. And it's a lot more natural what you've done with mastering by focusing on trying to make Zero Cross do a particular thing, whether the song is trying to do it or not, is just twist and distort it into a weird form. Where all of a sudden you're like, here, this is what it needs to do. Oh, we need more highs. And you do stuff like that and just end up with a weird thing because you've lost the naturalness of it. You're forcing it into a form that is not its own. And one of the things we're doing is loudinating it. So you go, okay, let's use zoom to stop it. And the next thing you know, it's a complete disaster. So this is why I've been hesitant to let people have this mastering plugin, because if you were using the mastering plugin and going, oh, well, I need this line to go here, and I need this to do that, and I need that to do that, and the Zero Cross should cover a full range, like if you were Dark Side of the Moon, you could so easily screw everything up so hard. And look, it's even getting an AC rating now. But do you want to listen to this? Compared to what I mixed? Yeah. So that's why I haven't put mastering out. It's so easy to screw everything up with it. And it's not easy to make things be awesome with it. Which is not to say that I won't ever put it out under any circumstances. I could see letting people have this, but oh man, the idea, like it's like my feelings around having put out ConsoleX, and then the first version of it wasn't saving its state, so people could do an entire mix and then hit quit on the DAW, and the next time they start it out, they've lost everything. That's a feel bad moment. And putting out mastering in such a way where it's like, here, this is all you need. I have a meter. And you learn to do this. And having people just do monstrosities like I just demonstrated, thinking they were doing mastering, is another feel bad moment. So it gets elusive quick. And here's the thing. Working with this might not make it sound bad. Like I've already put out zoom. You're not supposed to draw zoom back this far. Dark F and ratio exists in the most recent Air, and that's fairly safe to use in conjunction with meter. But this 4-band Kalman filter is a monster. It is a real monster. So we can do this with it. We can use it to fairly effectively pull back the hottest peaks, but we've made it weaker. Or again, adjust it like that. But these things, it's not necessarily a friendly thing to work with. Oh, I'll try again. Maybe the secret to it would just be to restrict the range of adjustment to like 0.01 from center. Because what I'm finding is, in theory, you could need to do radical things with this. But for almost all of this, man, it's like, yeah, you want to be in 0.5, 0.5, 0.5 throughout. And it's not even as friendly as ConsoleX for like dialing one thing down completely and listening to what the weird other thing is. Because again, low. I can make low become less. That's low being less but still having sub. But if I keep subtracting it, it gets weird. Or if I boost it, heaven forbid, here's low being boosted. It's really unmanageable. So you wind up with just these tiny adjustments of things. And even having done that, there's something funny about the clackiness of that kick drum now. If you boost these things and cut the lows and boost the subs, now we're just in brightness land. So you can cross over the mids to the lows a lot higher. Pull that back a little bit. And we've got the low and sub conjunction. So if we turn that down, oh, and it just freaked out. See? This is why I'm not sure I want to let people have this. It goes crazy. And it's real easy to take it into these funny places. See, again, this is the bright aggressive section, and we're able to do some useful things with it. Here's our guitar solo section. So yeah, I might simply need to do a new version of this where the range of adjustment is incomprehensibly tiny. Because as soon as I start moving this 4-band Kalman beyond just the centerest of center settings, it goes crazy. And the entire texture of things gets wiped out so aggressively. And I do like the idea that if you have everything as exactly 0.5, which good luck getting back to that now. This is the VST version of it, so I can't actually push a shift or anything to get it back to 0.5, and in Twisted Wave I can't even double click it and get a 0.5. I'm just stuck with whatever this is, so the range of adjustment I have up. He says I can never get back to 0.5 and then immediately does just that. Let's see if I can do that for everything. Probably not. Fine, we're leaning in the bassy direction or not. So twitchy and touchy this. Okay, there's that. So this would be the kind of thing where if I was to try to use this and not just ruin everything, it would be acting kind of like this. But the current situation I've got it in, like, it's really hard to work with, and that's why you don't have it. So when I cut it in, It can be very similar. But the range of adjustment is just freaky. And again, we can go back to here. And we can do the thing of pulling some of these lows out so it's not full of like the green dots and the peaking, because most of this energy is in low. But the amount that I need to do is unmanageable. Back to here. See, I just went from 0.499 something to 0.48 and it's already transformed it. If I go farther, it's completely reinvented it to the point where it's kind of unmanageable. And I also find it's hard to hear these changes, because remember, these are not simply filters. These are multiple bands of Kalman filters all affecting each other. And yeah, Stonefire Air is much more manageable in ConsoleX. So one thing I can tell you is if I let people have this mastering plugin, I have to make it so that the range of going from here to here is equivalent to like about from here to here, maybe. Just the tiniest little adjustments. And I've already dialed. This is recombining sounds from a stack of Kalman filters. So in theory, we're doing sub plus low plus mid plus air. Do you know the amplitudes I'm doing that at? It's already reined in from what is in ConsoleX. It is already like half the adjustable range, and it's not nearly enough. Adding the 4 bands makes it go crazy. So I don't know what to tell you about that, but there we go. And more will be revealed as far as this stuff. Like, you've got the zoom, but we can't really use this for mastering, because at the point that you get to here or here, that's already completely beyond what mastering would call for, and is well into the range of mixing or sound design / special effects. Dark F and ratio, those are actually pretty damn close to what would be usable. There's no real harm done, although honestly you can still break it with Dark F. Like, no reason to ever be able to do this. But those top 4 filters are just totally unmanageable. And the lows are the worst. You can hear how we're cutting subs, and then we're adding them again. And all I'm doing is combining the things again between the volume levels of like 0.5 and 1.5. We're already really far away from 0 to, say, 2, something that you'd have in ConsoleX. But yeah, so I guess that's where we leave it. Is and look at all the mess that I made, and that counts as transcendency. This is why I'm real careful about this stuff, because people will start using meter and go, okay, my job is to make it be AA, and then I know it's good, and oh goodness no. But yeah. So that's where we're at, and it is 5 o'clock, so it's time for me to go and have my dinner. I'll continue fooling with this stuff. I'll check in again at some point throughout the week. I don't know whether I'm going to try doing a Tuesday, Thursday, or whether I'm just going to check in on a Wednesday. I mean, there's been a lot. The release of ConsoleX was kind of a lot. I'm a little enthusiastic about like jumping into that, grappling with the mastering plugin and putting it together in a way that is usable and would actually work. Because clearly I need that for myself. Like, I can't adjust the controls appropriately the way this is, much less let other people at it. But yeah, and that's going to be coming around in 2025 is we'll start seeing some of that. So yeah, and Fotis, you're asking about the controls there. That's on the end of the monitoring plugin. And I'm not using TPDF wide and Paul wide. And 10.9's Into Dark is, I believe, the final it's a monitoring 3. So that is monitoring 3. Yeah, Orogrens, if you get the most recent version of that download with all of the basic plugins and the examples for using Air Windows Globals, I have updated that. Now, if people going forwards download that, they will see that the example Air Windows Globals is already Arial. But I encourage using something other than Arial. We just know that that's going to be there on Windows. And we also know that if you're on the Mac and you don't have Arial, it will actually still work. The reason that I didn't catch that one is because I tested it on the Mac, and on the Mac, if you misspell the name of the font or whatever, it doesn't explode. But on the Windows, it does. So yeah, I will see you folks later. I'm going to go off and have a rest and make my dinner, stoke up my wood stove again. See, it has dwindled. And I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.